I actually wanted to watch another video from Totally Not Mark. Let's see how it goes.
On Dragon Ball's 20th anniversary, the first ever home release hit the market. It had broken colors and out of sync audio. Whatever. On Dragon Ball's 25th anniversary, Funimation released its first ever HD scan, which was extremely awesome. Until it was cancelled. And if you thought that was bad, just wait until Dragon Ball's 30th anniversary joins the chat, because it had one of the absolute worst home releases in Dragon Ball history.
This looks so bad.
We just can't stop winning.
Holy shit, look how blurry this is. This looks like a bad filter on top of it.
Stop winning. And because of that winning, once Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary rolled around the corner, fans across the world received news of Dragon Ball.
But I have to say, this one trailer here with the animated artwork looks super cool. I always love watching that. This one.
Across the world received news of Dragon Ball Super Remaster, which, you know, it's fine. But the main event was Moro and Xenoverse 3, and those won't be around until 2027, so is...
It was actually about everything that didn't matter. I remember that I watched this event at 4 or 5 in the morning, because I was still awakened, and I thought, okay, 20 more minutes, I can stay up for that. Maybe it will come to something cool, and I got so disappointed.
This year really going to go by without anything else? Well, thanks to the crazy fans in the restoration group Kaneko Video, this year, the Year of Our Kami 2026 will offer us a glimpse of what Dragon Ball would look like if Toei actually gave a shit. Restored for the very first time and released in honor of the anime's 40th anniversary, this is Kaneko Video's HD rescan of Dragon Ball. Okay, so as a quick primer, the original Dragon Ball anime has never been released in native HD. There was a terrible AI upscale from Select Division in Spain, then AB Group did a good AI upscale in France.
Yeah, I remember that video from, I think 2 years ago or something. That was actually kind of good.
For Toei stood in their way because they wanted to release their own thing. And rather than spend any money scanning the original film reels in HD like any other good company would, they decided to do their own upscale, which is insultingly dog shit. It looks...
Is this even upscaled? It just looks like old material.
Looks about as good as those fan remaster attempts in the 2000s. But this is where Kaneko Video comes in, which is both extremely exciting but also kind of a tease. Okay, let me explain. You see, over the past 6 years, the group has found 16mm prints of the original Dragon Ball series and spent a remarkable amount of time and money scanning and restoring them into the glorious form you see before you. The unfortunate part is they've managed to only find 13 episodes. Now that's actually an insane number given prints are typically locked down in license holders' basements around the globe, but it does mean this is but a mere tease of what a complete HD remaster of the show could look like. But the reason I wanted to cover this today in spite of that is that I think the story behind this work is worth telling. You see, if we jump all the way back to 2020, Kaneko Video was already operating as a fan restoration group, which means they'd hunt down rare old film reels, restore them, and release them into the wild. And after acquiring a Dr. Slump traffic safety...
But just look at the quality, how they even stabilized everything. So you can see the flickering in Princess Peach's body.
Film reels, restore them, and release them into the wild.
You see how she's flickering and Mario is completely still. That's crazy.
And after acquiring a Dr. Slump traffic safety short, one of their members decided to start trying to hunt down Dragon Ball material. Now, of course, it's not nearly as simple as plugging Dragon Ball 16mm film reel into Google, because those things are like gold dust these days. So he went a step further and looked into delisted eBay posts going back years. And it was...
So, full on mode activated. Like, he's probably sitting there in front of his PC, stretching his fingers, and then he's starting his work.
Here he found someone who had once tried to sell 5 episodes. Now, as they were marked as sold, Kineko reached out to the original seller to see if he still had them at all. And lo and behold, he actually did! Thankfully, he agreed to lend his reels to Kineko, and that's how this all began. They scanned them in, sent the reels back, and continued their hunt. Then, in what was an incredible twist of fate, the same guy reached out to them a few months later after realizing he actually had 2 more film reels. This brought Kineko.
Where did he got them from? Did he just bought them in the meantime or in the past or something?
Up to 7 episodes in total. The first 5 from episodes 133 to 139, and these 2 new ones comprising episodes 56 and 57. The collection was growing and they weren't about to stop there. You see, a Japanese fan contacted the group, and this is where it gets quite eerie. Not only did he have a Dragon Ball traffic safety reel to send in, but he also had Dragon Ball episode 58, the very episode that followed the 2 most recent acquisitions. And along with it, he had the entirety of movie 12. Now at this point, things were looking good, but they were about to get even better. The jackpot was right around the corner when, out of nowhere, the reel for the entirety of Dragon Ball's second movie popped up on Yahoo Auctions. That bad boy was expensive. So the team banded together and crowdfunded the full amount, totaling around $1,400. Now, while all this backroom Dragon Ball dealing was going on, Kineko was starting to gain notoriety for their releases. They had gained access to a print of a rare Super Mario movie from the 80s that only ever had a VHS release in the past. When they dropped their remarkable 4K restoration, that thing went viral. It was covered by all the major gaming outlets at the time and really pushed their presence in the restoration space to new heights. So, when someone popped up on Reddit with a film reel for Dragon Ball Z's 9th movie, the comments immediately pointed them in the direction of Kineko Video. Because it turns out that back in the day when Funimation were creating their own HD releases of these films, they left the reels with the scanning company. And over a decade later, when they were looking to clear out their storage, they were snatched from the jaws of the trash heap and gifted to this very lucky fan. So against all odds...
That's super funny. Okay, here's the thing. I think that there's a disconnect, right? Because for the production companies, this original material isn't as worth as for the fans, right? So there's like an emotional disconnect from the beginning. Because there's a difference of you doing stuff for your work and you love stuff because it's your favorite thing. Although I don't want to exclude people who are working on their stuff that they also love. I'm pretty sure that, especially in animation, everyone loves what they are doing. Not everyone, but a lot of people, because we all know that art deserves a lot of passion to really grow into it. So it's not like, yeah, you're the best and now you have to do it forever. There are probably people who are more or less passionate about art than others, but overall, I think especially in this industry, you have to have a certain level of passion. The difference is, again, big companies. For them, it's just money. It's not about the product, it's more about what they can get out of it. We saw it last time with the AI debate, that companies, although it's wrong, are tending to it because it's way more easier for them. We see a lot of companies right now, for example, also in the VFX industry, getting close. There are a lot of studios that are having massive layoffs or getting close completely. Like just yesterday, they announced that Pixelmondo, which is a big VFX studio which made the VFX for example, House of a Dragon, they get shut down by Sony, and they will focus more on image works. We will see what this will be, but I will try to listen a little bit, because in around 1.5 months there's the FNX in Stuttgart, the big conference. They always have like a big recruiting floor, and last year it was already only half full, so the other half was empty, and they just did put some empty tables in it. So I'm curious how it looks this year, especially since even more studios closed. Right now, the industry is also super difficult.
In conventional wisdom, he listened to Reddit and made contact with Kineko. And it's a good thing he did, because not only did he have a piece of movie 9, he also had a piece of movie 7. And while not complete, this allowed the group to create true 4K versions of these movies for the very first time in history. But of course, this video is all about the original Dragon Ball TV series, and that tale comes to a close with the surprise handover of another 5 episodes from a collector. You see, it turns out that in the early 2000s, these Funimation reels were traded around at various conventions for a remarkably cheap rate. This person in question had actually picked up a few and just sat on them for years as film.
Or I think it was just the other day where I saw it was about a video game. It was about one of these visual novels in Japan from Type Moon writing. One fan just bought a really old Type Moon game, which was at the time sold at a convention, at the time when Type Moon wasn't that famous. This was like an original drive. This copy got completely destroyed by the border control. Here you can clearly see how this just got ripped apart and completely smashed. In US customs, it got destroyed.
Scanning is typically pretty expensive, so it just made sense to loan them to Kineko for scanning. With all of that said and done, the group now had 13 Dragon Ball episodes, 2 full movies and 2 partial ones, which wasn't bad at all considering all of these acquisitions took place over the span of just 2 and a bit years. But of course, it's now early 2026. So what exactly did the group do over these past few years? Well, they turned this into this. These film reels are all many decades old and were stored in all kinds of different places, which means every batch was degraded in its own unique way.
You got already used to this old contrastful picture like here, that you kind of have this dark gray already in your mind, or of course this reddish skin tone. This looks
Into
almost strange. Although I really have to say, with this gradient, with this kind of brown gradient in contrast to the gray, it looks pretty cool, I have to admit.
this.
But I kind of miss the reddish shadows.
These film reels are all many decades old and were stored in all kinds of different places, which means every batch was degraded in its own unique way. Episodes 56, 57, and the final wedding episodes were largely undamaged, but all had a yellow color cast to them with dim greens and slight colored fringing on the edges of lines.
Yeah, okay, here you can really see that these colors in the new version are so much nicer to look at, since it's way brighter.
The flip side, episodes 133 to 139 were extremely red. It was only really the Japanese fans reel that was largely okay color-wise, only showing a slightly teal skew. This is likely because this was a direct Japanese print that was given to TV networks back in the day for them to create broadcast tapes from, while the previous episodes were all duplicates shipped overseas many years after the Japanese broadcast was finished.
Yeah, this is also the thing with original film, that the more you are using it and the more they are duplicating it, the more the quality suffers, right? So, of course, if you have like a version that, like the first one that did not got duplicated, then it would have like the best quality. But it's just like with old copies from copies, you know, that with every copy process got worse and worse from the beginning.
Therefore goes a long way in explaining why the Western prints were extremely dark too. You see, when you create these copies, it's not like a digital scenario where it's a perfect one-to-one duplicate. Instead, you're essentially photographing the film onto another bit of film, which involves several factors that ultimately end up changing the overall look.
But in digital, we also have the same with the compression, right? So as long as you are not just copying in a really, really high resolution with less compression as possible, then you also lose always more quality.
In many cases, these duplicates were duplicates of duplicates, so those issues added up fast. Thankfully, nothing was particularly difficult to color correct from these episodes. Some white balancing cures the cast, and from there, it's the kind of typical color work you'd expect from a color correction project, adjusting hues, saturation, and color brightness until they look as intended. But perhaps the most interesting aspect is how the darkness of the overall image was not just fixed, but dramatically improved even against currently existing scans. Now, I'm sure many of you might have sat down and watched Dragon Ball Kai and gone, wait, hold on, why is Vegeta's hair brown? And the answer is simply because that's how it was painted. In almost all of the official releases, the dark detail is crushed down to the point that you can't actually tell the difference between brown and black. But when you have access to the film reels themselves, you can access all of that dark and bright color detail because film stores significantly more exposure information than video does. That's why Kai and this Kineko release share a similar look. They're both displaying the animation cells with their original color and dynamic range. But it's not as simple as it sounds.
That's why Yamcha has this bluish hair here, right? Look at Yamcha. It's almost the same color as Goku's jacket.
Range, but it's not as simple as it sounds. The quality of your scanner and the way you use it is actually almost as important as the restoration itself. Going back to Kai once again, I imagine you may have also questioned why on earth it looks so blurry considering this was a whole new modern HD scan. Well, the unfortunate reality is that, perhaps due to deadline crunch, the show was scanned significantly faster than it should have been, which means every single frame is blurred vertically from the sheer speed at which
Kai Blu-ray clarity barely surpasses DVD release. That's so bad. Wait, this is the direct comparison between Kai and the DVD.
It should have been, which means every single frame is
Kai?
blurred vertically from the
It's still better, so you have less grain, but of course I'm pretty sure you can almost get a pretty similar result with compositing. In compositing you can easily degrain the whole material as well and then color correct it. But I think what makes a better difference here is that you can clearly see the difference between these two scans. The angle is a little bit different. It's a little bit rotated or something, or distorted.
Vertically from the sheer speed at which it went through the scanner. Both Kai and Kineko are using the same 16mm size film source, but the difference in clarity is astonishing because Kineko actually did things properly. What a novel idea. Now, the scan process wasn't as smooth sailing as it might sound here. Originally, the group was reliant on a company in Texas to do the work, but their scanner had artificial sharpening enabled, and it was generally poor at picking up clarity in the red parts of the image. This meant that it was almost impossible to fix the faded lines on those red tinted film reels. They actually went the route that many professional restoration places do that purists often think is a blanket bad thing. They did careful noise removal to reduce the problematic grain and then resynthesize the grain back in afterwards. And yet
this is normal. This is actually the usual workflow in VFX. Every time when we got a film material, we try to get rid of the grain because then we can work on it way more easily. And then on top of all of our edits, like for example, if we also edited 3D into it, then we put the original grain on top of it again so that it's merging better together.
Even with a solution like that, they then did maybe the craziest thing in this entire tale. They dropped the external scan house and instead bought a scanner that cost as much as a mid-range Porsche. Yes, you heard me right. With this
This is passion.
insanely good scanner in competent hands now, episodes 58 onwards all look incredible. The lines are a deep black and the grain is significantly more pleasing to the eye now. Dragon Ball Movie 2 was scanned with this, as were Z Movie 7 and 9. This group has really gone the whole extra.
But I really have to say 9 looks phenomenal. Every shot that Mark showed here earlier from movie 9 looked so good. And also, of course, movie 12.
Mile in ensuring their releases look fantastic. In fact, when it was discovered that their movie 12
Yeah, look at that. But also animation-wise, I always loved this shot. It kind of reminds me on... I think I took a little bit of influence unconsciously from this shot of Yamember when he attacks to my own short film. Where, by the way, the trailer is probably dropped because right now I'm still doing my 15-hour marathon, and right before watching this video I showed the sneak peek of the trailer. Probably when this video is out, the trailers are already released.
really gone the whole extra mile in ensuring their releases look fantastic. In fact, when it was discovered
So cool. And again, here look at from really slow, just look how how little movement there is. Only the tail is moving almost, I would say, 180 degree almost, and then the body just snaps right in front of us.
Fact, when
Super slow. The tail is almost moved through probably half the body, and
it was discovered
then it's going way faster.
that their movie 12 reel was water damaged, they sent it off to a film lab in Tokyo to get it fixed. And when they got it back, you wouldn't have ever known it was damaged in the first place.
Holy shit, this is really crazy. This is so much passion.
Time and time again, they just keep going further beyond what any other restoration group has ever done. There are really only a few compromises I can even think of. The first is that only a few episodes have had their splice marks cleaned up. That's that mark at the top of the frame every single time a new cut happens. They were originally planning to fix this on every episode, but it's a time-consuming process they deemed not worthwhile when they could instead devote their time to complete features such as the movies. For example, their copy of movie 12 doesn't have quite the level of dynamic range you'd expect from a film reel, so it takes a great deal of time to ensure the skin and eyes aren't clipping into one big white mess.
Holy shit. Yeah, this is crazy. Just look at this. This is the original typical contrast adjustment. Okay, and they had to adjust it even better. But look at this quality. These are so nice, vibrant colors at the skin. Just look at the difference. And also the eyes, of course. Here the eyes are looking almost a little bit gray yellowish, and this is white. That's crazy.
White mess. It definitely makes sense to dedicate time to something complete like this. But I'm sure for many of you, you're wondering why film scans of these movies even matter, let alone as a priority focus. After all, the Dragon Ball movies already have good HD remasters, especially if you're watching Seed of Might's color-corrected versions. At first glance, these scans might seem redundant, but actually they offer something we've never truly had before. A complete 4:3 presentation in not just HD, but 4K.
I figured that probably the other releases would be cropped in a widescreen, and this is how they were made. And you can almost still see, like, here are the borders.
While it's true that the films were composed with 16:9 in mind, they were also storyboarded and animated for 4:3 simultaneously. And given that the staff's
probably for a TV release or something, because you had this in the, I think, 70s or 80s, that movies were concepted for the big screen, for the cinema, but also for the TV as well, so that you had two different versions of a movie, one TV version and one cinema version. And the TV version often has a different, or had a different aspect ratio. What you are also doing in animation is that you are usually using a different aspect ratio or a different format than you are showing at the end. Like, for example, here you can clearly see that this is not widescreen format. I wanted to have a safety zone. For example, if I want to add a camera shake, or if I want to add a pan or a simple zoom, then I have a material. Look, maybe I only need this part of the image, or maybe I need this one, or I want to make a zoom like that. I can do all of this, or even I say, okay, I would like to have more of a frame, so I could easily make this bigger and I still have all of the information. I'm way more flexible with that, and I still can zoom in or zoom out or make a camera pan.
Spent years working almost exclusively in that format for the TV series, it's clear that many shots simply work better when uncropped. The compositions feel more natural and less constrained. There's more headroom, more space for movement, and less of that cramped feeling that comes from cropping the image down. For the very first time, you can actually choose how to experience them without making any compromises you're not comfortable with. And that's really the broader point here, and why I chose to cover this topic at all. Dragon Ball home releases are consistently a compromise. Cropped, badly upscaled, poorly filtered, or simply left on archaic forms of media that haven't stood the test of time. So not to sound like the Joker here, but a video like this is about sending a message. 13 episodes isn't much in the grand scheme of Dragon Ball's total runtime, but it shows people what Dragon Ball could look like if Toei actually cared. And most importantly, it lets people know that it is both okay to expect better and that better exists at all. Toei are perfectly capable of doing proper remasters. They've done it for other series like Dragon Quest without issue. But for Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary, one of the most important milestones in the franchise's history, they chose to honor its legacy by releasing an upscale of a 20-year-old DVD instead. They seem to believe that's an acceptable way to preserve one of the most influential anime ever created. But it isn't. And it's a shame we can't rely on international license holders like Crunchyroll to pick up the slack either, because they've shown time and again they also don't want to spend the money. So, I'm going to ask two things of you. Firstly, if you happen to have any film reels for Dragon Ball, please reach out to Kineko Video and loan them your reel for scanning.
Yeah, for sure. But it happens, right? It's just super unlikely, but maybe sons or grandsons of someone who was working at the production back in the day took one of the video reels. That seems like it really could happen.
As you've seen, they'll do an incredible job, and the fandom will be eternally grateful for your contribution. Secondly, and this is the most important one,
This shot looks so damn good with Goku kicking Jamemba. Just look at this foreshortening. So cool. And here again, you really get the advantage of a full frame. Just imagine how it would look cropped in a widescreen. You would lose probably this or this and maybe have only a little bit of the eye. It's crazy.
Grateful for your contribution. Secondly, and
so well animated again with the dynamic between fast movements and slow movements. Just look here how Goku's upper body is almost not moving. From here to here, only a little bit, and here again, the legs are following them. So nice.
Secondly, and this is the most important one, I want to ask that you do not settle for less. Let Toei know bad upscales are not acceptable. They have the film reels. They've worked with good restoration houses before. An HD rescan is not an impossible task. It's just expensive. And Dragon Ball is exactly the kind of series worth spending that money on. If not Dragon Ball, what other series would you do it for?
Yeah, that's the thing. Since Dragon Ball is still so, he said it already, so influential and so big in the pop culture that it's actually possible, and it would be cool to have a proper release.
They actually put out a real remaster worldwide, we will buy it. All we ask is that they put the same level of care and respect into it that the very people who made the show did all those decades ago. Thanks to Kineko Video, we've now seen a glimpse of what that future may look like if Toei steps up, or maybe more accurately, it's a glimpse of the past as it was always meant to be seen. Here's hoping the story doesn't end here, but for now, I will say thank you once again to Kineko Video. Thank you for watching. I've been Totally Not Mark, and I'll see you next time.
Fans are amazing. It's so cool that they are putting so much effort into it. That's why I really like watching his videos, because they always are really positive at the end, especially.